Welcome to the Supply Chain Ambassador Podcast. I'm your host, Bruno, helping you navigate the world of supply chain in a fun and engaging way. On today's podcast, I have with me Matthew Johnson. From policing to the public service, Matthew Johnson is the Acting Director of Procurement and Contract Management in the Federal Public Service. He leads strategic sourcing, competitive procurement, and supplier engagement initiatives supporting enterprise-wide priorities. He joined the public service in 2016 and has since been fulfilling duties with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. Matthew has contributed to major departmental initiatives, including procurement modernization, outcome-based professional service strategies, and aligning procurement functions with the project and investment demands. Known for his people-centered leadership, he focuses on enabling teams by mobilizing the right stakeholders at the right time. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Bruno. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you give us more context to your journey and how you got to where you are today?
So I think if I take it all the way back, I started out my career pretty early in the logistics space, actually within the construction industry, and that hadn't been touched upon. So in that early era, I was developing the skills of negotiation and discussions with various contractors across, it was the GTA at the time. And I quickly grew from that, but then diverged and went into what was criminology and international affairs. I studied for probably a period of 4 to 5 years in that domain, graduated from Carleton University with a degree in criminology. Moving forward, I decided that I wanted to take my career into policing, detection, that sort of field. But very quickly, I had turned my sights onto the federal government. And I think that I did so because I was looking for an opportunity to make an impact on Canadians. I saw very early on that I was eager to work with people, to build connections, and that's what took me into policing. But when I got that call from Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada at the time, I decided I'm going to pack up from the GTA, move to Ottawa, and take my career there and see where that leads. So I accepted a junior position at the time as a contracting officer or specialist. I started to develop a lot of frameworks and ground rules for what I would call a very convoluted procurement space in supply chain. At that time, being a contracting specialist, I was in procurement and material management. So at IRCC, we do have a very robust material management space. We're dealing a lot with passport programs, and so obviously with that would come a significant volume of tangible goods. So that was pretty interesting. But where I found that I fit in the most was on the procurement side, on developing contracts, negotiations with industry, and that stakeholder engagement piece. And so I started exploring my career further in that area. And I'd like to say that I grew up actually within IRCC. So I grew up within IRCC because one, it was my first federal department. Two, it took me away from the private sector where I always thought that I wanted to be. But I kept going back to the federal government in my thinking. I had never actually left, but I had always had the option on the table to divert my career. But I had always come back to the federal government just for the sole purpose of serving Canadians. And really, my passion was to develop a better Canada. So I don't think that I've stopped at all. I have ambitious goals to continue to be able to bring Canada into a space of, I'd say, more prosperous and energetic times. Yeah.
Especially in today's times, I think helping our fellow Canadians and having, I think, as even for me as well, as a public servant, public service is the goal, right? Like we're building our country and supporting our citizens is, to me, is such a key driver for me in procurement. So it's nice to see that despite you having different options, you still had that one driving motivation for continuing your journey at IRCC, which brings me to then, what do you love about your work?
So currently, I've had the opportunity since becoming that contracting specialist to develop into what I am now in the acting director of procurement and contract management within the CFO sector of IRCC. And what I could say that I love about my work is I've been able to do two things. And one was stabilize and grow a team that I've come to really love at the moment. And it's very cliche. You can say that you stick around in the community because of the people that you work with, or then there's the train of thought that it's the work itself. And for me, it is both. I've had the opportunity to now develop and lead this team, but also work on a diverse range of projects spanning from resettling asylum and refugee claimants into Canada. We had the operation for Ukraine that happened in 2023, 24. So we had numerous planes, hotels, transportation security programs set up. And through that mechanism and through the procurement mechanism at that time, I was able to directly impact the lives of individuals globally through IRCC's temporary mandate. So since then, it's ramped down. And I still love what I do. There's still a very diverse range of projects that are ongoing initiatives. We've recently dived really deep into the digital platform modernization space. So our DPM3 work is really taking off. We're in tranche 3 of it, hence the third phase. So with that comes again the opportunity to change the way that individuals interact with their first instance of how Canada's built. So building a client experience portal, building the back end to that portal, and the management piece is really crucial next steps for IRCC to not only give people hope and prosperity for coming to Canada and a reason to be here and attracting the right groups of people. So it also gives them the background and kind of the support that they need to come here and then become effective within Canadian society. So being able to influence these projects through the supply chain, through procurement, material management, I really love that piece about the work. If I can take it back though to the people and what's enabled me to actually go from being a contract specialist into this acting director role, I had a predominant manager early on in my career who saw something in me, saw an opportunity. I was actually unilingual at the time. I had a lot of limiting factors. The other thing was I spoke a lot of Italian heavily at home. So, I mean, even for myself, doing things like public speaking, stakeholder engagements, and procurement, I was very much a timid person earlier on in my career, but I think that individual really led me to where I am today. I try to do the exact same thing with everybody that's within my team and who I'm leading at the moment.
Wow, that's wonderful. Leading and supporting not just the wider public, but also your team and inspiring them and encouraging them. Certainly it's helped you get to where you are, and that's such a fantastic to see that. Inspiring that team around you is great, and supporting the wider public is also terrific. But oftentimes people come with a lot of misconceptions about what you do or how you function. Can you talk to any misconceptions that you found in your work?
Yeah, I think a very key misconception is that I've actually, funny enough, heard a lot of people on your podcast to date state that procurement and the supply chain steps in the government of Canada are roadblocks or very bureaucratic and process burdensome. And so I think a common misconception is that the procurement teams and contract management teams are there to only provide the challenge functions and to tell you why something could not be achieved, why you have to do it a certain way. To really, the conception is that they bring in a very bureaucratic, heavy, burdensome process to what you're doing. And red tape, you sum it up as red tape. It's a theme I'm willing to bet that's across all of the departments and agencies within the government of Canada. It's something that I find is really emphasized within line departments. You have your agencies and common service providers, PSPC and SSC, where people might actually overlook what a procurement and contract management team is doing within its own individual department to go ahead and say, why do we need their input? We're going to skip and go to PSPC, SSC, and look at what TBS has put out as a whole to guide our decisions, where I believe that to have a strong operational process within the department, the misconception has to change, and you have to leverage the internal expertise that you have at the table. So we could take it a step further and discuss how changing that misconception is something everybody has to work on collectively across the board.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was worried you were going to say the misconception was that nobody knew you knew Italian.
It's true. With a last name like Johnson,
Right?
a last name like Johnson, yeah, it's a thing that very few people know. And I guess the other thing that very few people would guess is now I'm trilingual. So I was able to eventually obtain my C's in French, and that was a pretty big feat in itself. So yeah, I can say that's a misconception.
Speaking of challenges, right? What are the challenges that you've faced and how did you overcome them?
In growing into this role, I'd say it comes as no surprise that I might be somebody younger at executive tables, somebody that's could be put in the frame of, overly ambitious or trying to overstep. But I think trying to overstep their stride. So that coupled with, at the beginning, my lack of French language when moving to Ottawa was very difficult. But I put together this plan, and where I think I took the right steps was talking to people that had accomplished what I was looking to accomplish. And you're always going to get people that give you the negative side. You're always going to have people that challenge you. And that's really good. That's great for procurement, actually. You always want someone to tell you what's going to go wrong, so that way you can course correct and see where you're going to go. But in getting to where I am now, I'll take it back to my team. And I have some pretty important people that report to me currently who I don't think that I would have had the opportunity to do what I'm doing at the moment as the director in procurement at IRCC without their support and guidance. Even they've had every opportunity to say that Matt can't do it, or Matt's not in the right mind space to do that. He doesn't have the right course and vision for it. But I have to say that their supports enabled me to overcome a lot of these challenges. I was able to, like I mentioned, obtain my French language levels, and speaking the second language, I think, has opened a lot of doors, not only professionally, but relationship-wise and across the department and across many departments in the government. So yeah, overcoming that challenge, funny, coincidentally, I'll bring it back to Italian roots. And I think how I started off in the construction sector, how I moved into another private sector industry in developing sporting goods and equipment. So it's the mentality of not giving up when something's difficult and prioritizing the right things. Becoming a leader, you talk about people are always going to have their plates full. And so why I relate that to the Italian ancestry and my upbringing and that background there is because a lot of people that migrated to Canada, their plates were completely full, but I think they prioritized a couple of the right things, and that was people, communication, hard work, and dedication to their careers. And so if I embodied all of that, and hopefully I did it so in the right way, it's propelled me to where I am now and enabled me to overcome some of the challenges.
Yeah. People, communication, dedication, and hard work. Yeah. That sums up, what can take you far.
Yeah.
I think it's also encouraging to know that if we focus on the right things and have the right people, we can always step up to meet whatever challenge or role that we're invited to do. So I think it's very relatable. Today's episode was brought to you by Workaway Offices, Ottawa's premier flexible workspace provider. Their beautifully designed facilities offer everything from co-working, desks, and private offices to fully managed executive suites, along with meeting rooms, virtual business addresses, and more. It's everything a professional needs under one roof. Whether you're a freelancer, a startup founder, or a remote worker, Workaway Offices makes work fun and flexible. So visit Workaway Offices to book a tour and learn more. So now let's pivot to more exciting things that you're working on and in your role.
IRCC it's an ever evolving place. I think the last decade that I've worked there now, we've seen many organizational changes and shifts. With the most recent one, and I'll connect this to what's going on and exciting the procurement space, we've been bolstering the finance and procurement categories. So they're always thought of as corporate enablers and actually shown on diagrams off to the side, oftentimes forgotten. But we're bringing that back to the table, and we've rebranded within IRCC to really give some oomph to the procurement space. And what that has done is allowed us to sit at larger tables and engage horizontally across the department with the stakeholders that have had influence. So we're talking about our IT and technology sectors. We're talking about our strategic policy and program teams, and projects and investments, and our enterprise oversight on that. And what's really interesting and up and coming is working on an end-to-end process within the department that would enable a business owner to take their idea, no matter what it may be, and then work it through an integrated process, kind of a one-door system. And so, I mean, I got the inspiration from looking at how we started developing the client experience platform for immigration and external clients. And I started thinking, okay, how can we take that and look internally to enable the corporate side of the business to benefit from the same processes, realizations, and efficiencies. And so this is going to be something I'm looking to focus on heavily next year.
Yeah.
The first path to it is stabilization and solid processes. And we're looking right now at creating the solidified processes for each step along the way, and taking that and translating into it not only a digital environment where documents are digital, but a digitization of the process. So, and that enables what I would call the black hole to be evaded. And that's what people have referred to as procurement in the past, is we give them an item and that item goes into a black hole, and then they spit out a contract 6.5 months later, 5 months later. So with this end-to-end digital process that we're looking to build out across a technology platform, everybody's going to have their eye on the proper piece of the puzzle going through the process. So you'll have engagement from IT, corporate, cyber security, personal security. You'll have engagements from your enterprise project and management oversight teams. And then, of course, we'll have procurement and contract management at the same table. So what it enables is for your transformation projects all the way down to your small professional services and the like, to take shape from when the business owner has the idea. And yeah.
Talk about early engagements, right? Like, you're really bringing procurement way into the, right to the business owner when, they're coming up, formulating their ideas. That's phenomenal. Yeah. I had a comment to say because it inspired me to, yes, that's what I was going to mention, that oftentimes in procurement, this is what I find in procurement, and when I speak to senior managers or just to business owners or clients, my initial thought was, I have to know everything in procurement. But no, a lot of my job is just translating, is like communicator, translator, right?
Yeah, business requirements into procedural items.
Exactly. Yeah. Or policies, like explaining the policies. A lot of it is just that communication, building that understanding between all the stakeholders. So I think your approach of just like being at the table with all the stakeholders, right, at the very onset is the right way to go. Yeah.
And I would actually hope to expand that and see if we can materialize it within IRCC, and then progressively discuss with other departments and maybe central agencies about how, we can say, quote unquote, electronic procurements transformed the last decade. And we've gotten to a place where Canada Buys is operational and online, and maybe that's the vision for what e-procurement is. But I would love to have a larger discussion within the Government of Canada with procurement and contract management, material, individuals, to see if they want to buy in on this idea. Yeah.
Obviously, there's a gap for it. So, I'm glad that there's a very competent person looking at addressing these gaps. What advice will you give to other procurement officers or just people in the supply chain world when they think about, what you do, or just professional development in general? What advice would you give?
I think overall, I'd be amiss not to say that the best advice is to plan for flexibility and not rigidity. And, I bring that up because if you look at the thematics of what Treasury Board's been putting out lately in terms of policies, directives, everything is, this is how it should be, or this is what our interpretation is. And then you have to take that interpretation and make it into a process for yourself. So I think planning for flexibility and fluid processes is something that I would give as a general piece of advice to anybody in the procurement space for sure. And that's going to yield the best results in your processes for yourself and for the business.
That's true. Being agile, flexible. Any call to action to listeners?
It's funny. I've thought of a number of them over the last couple of weeks, ever since you started talking to me about this podcast. And I'm going to say, actually, I could say a number of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one.
I could say a number of
It could be many.
Could say a number of things. I believe, actually, a strong call to action is, we'll take the SIPM saying and be daring to try, and daring to try in the areas of learning, daring to try and not let yourself be held back because of you might not be at the right point in your career. You might have an idea, it might be the wrong time, but just be daring to try and see where it goes. So that's one thing, and actually I'll have to refer to a quote that I had, and it actually pertains to something I saw, a study from the private sector, and they were looking at in an era of digital and AI and transformations. So leading more human in a digital era is the tagline. And if you look at what some individuals are doing in the private sector, such as TD Bank, they actually released Super Bowl ads that said integrate, or it was along the lines of be more human, simply be more human. Mm-hmm. And so why I say that as a call to action is keep humans centric in your decision-making process, augment them with AI. Don't anticipate that the human should be removed from this to gain efficiencies. I think it's the other way around. And you're always going to recoup the most benefit when you think human in an AI space.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. That's so key. Yeah. Nothing to add to that. That's a great way to leave off. Because at the end of the day, it's the processes can change, the procedures, the policies, but at the end of the day, procurement and supply chain is people.
It is people. Yeah. Right. Comes back to the people.
Yeah.
Taking the action, speaking with each other. Speaking is a huge piece, that collaboration piece.
Yeah. Okay, you've answered all my questions that I had for this podcast. Thank you so much for coming in to do this. I'm going to open the floor back to you if you had any comments that you wanted to share, anything. I'll tell to you.
Yeah. No, it's a great platform, I think, that you're running. Very informative. I believe it's going to bring the comptrollership community, the procurement and comptrollership community, to the front and center of government operations. And that's pretty important because you're connecting solutions with challenges and driving departmental mandates for the benefit of Canadians and individuals looking to come to Canada. Mm-hmm. So I think I could close it off there. It's pretty much a broad and open world for the next steps in procurement. Obviously, we're always modernizing. It's going to keep modernizing. And yeah, like I said, I think fluidity is the best. I'm going to end it there. I don't know.
Fluidity is the best.
Fluidity is the best.
Yeah, it is. With that said, thank you so much. Yeah. You've shared quite a bit on this episode. We really got to see behind the scenes in your journey to your current role, some of the challenges you've faced at your current role, but how you've also overcame them, I think, was key. And then some of the exciting things you're working on is great. And a lot of good advice for our listeners was shared. So I really want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and sit and have this chat with me. And hopefully we'll come back and hopefully have a more in-depth look about some more things that you're working on. And I'll be more than happy to have you back for sure.
Amazing.
Okay, there you have it. Matthew Johnson, And on the podcast today, thank you for listening. Please do share this with your fellow colleagues. It helps to reach those who may not know or who would benefit from having to absorb some of this tangible, beneficial information that we're sharing here. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Cheerio.